In this video, we'll talk about the MLOps fundamental. More importantly, we'll be talking about the environments and the assets in a machine learning project. So let's get started and let's understand about the environments and the assets that you would generally come across while working in a machine learning projects. See, when we talk about the environments, see, commonly while working with any machine learning projects, the three commonly seen environments are dev, stage, and prod. So dev is nothing but the development environment. Stage is nothing but the UAT or staging environment. It depends on company or process how they want to call it. And prod is the production environment. Now, what happens is in case of development environment, so development environment is created such a way that anyone can access it. At least most of the people will have the access to this development environment. And while working in a development project or development environment, I would say, obviously there's no quality. That means there's no guarantee on the quality of data that you will be working with. And if you do any mistake in the development environment, there will be less, or I would say very low risk when you have a model which is performing really worse, because it does not have any impact to the production system. Okay, so that is the overall idea of this dev stage. So when working, so many data scientists will actually work together in a development environment. They will produce the models as per their requirement. They will produce the prototype. And if there is any issues in those models, the risk that is posed by those models is very low for the business, because this development environment is completely separate from the live product. And here, the next environment that I have mentioned is a staging environment. Now, in this case of staging environment, what happens is whenever the development is complete, so that development, if I want to test it, first I'll do a single round of testing in the development environment. And for the further testing, we are going to move it to the staging environment. Now, this staging environment generally acts as a gateway for code in order to reach the production environment. So as a result of this, very few people will have the access to the staging environment. And here we will test the code that we have created. In case of machine learning, we'll also test the machine learning models that has been created from the development environment. And here we will ensure that the quality of the data that we would observe in the staging environment is matched with the production environment. And for testing and for performing the validation purpose, this is generally treated as a live product. So this would ensure that the business who is testing, they will get a feel as how this new model that we are actually trying to build, how it would actually work in a live environment. So that is the overall idea about this staging environment. And finally, we have got the prod environment, also known as the production environment. Now here, this is an environment which is very critical to the business. This is the environment where your end users are actually accessing your application. So as a result of this, very least number of people will have the access to the production environment. Obviously, there will be a tight control on the access, and this will be achieved through the various IAM, for example, in the AWS, that is Identity and Access Management, or with the help of various identity and access management services. We are going to ensure that only limited set of people will have the access to this production environment. So while working, we will always ensure that we have the highest quality in the assets, because this is an environment which is known as a business critical environment. Okay, so these are the three commonly used environment when you take up any typical machine learning project. Now, in some cases, you might see 4, or in some cases, depending on the industry that you're working, you might see 5 as well. But overall, you will generally see 3 types of environment. Now, apart from these environments, compared to the normal SDLC, that is the software development lifecycle, that is the general application building, in case of machine learning, you will see the additional assets that you will be working in a project. Now, when you think about a machine learning project, you will have a code file. Now, this code file can be a Python script or it can be a Python notebook which you have used. So this is a code file which is responsible maybe transforming the data or applying some kind of functions or the transformations from which you have got the data. Now, in order to track those code files, generally we will be storing it in the version control repository, which is based on Git. Okay, so the project code of the environment of any environment will be tracked under the version control repository with the help of branches, we call it in the Git. Okay, and the models and the model artifacts will be tracked with the help of model registry. Now, the reason because when you're working in a project, maybe you will use the same project code, but as and when you retrain any model, the model artifacts is going to change. For example, you are going to deploy the version 1 of the model. Now, after 1 week, you found that the data that is coming to you is very new. So what you will do, you will re-trigger a training pipeline. So it will do the process again with the latest data. Now here, while doing the process, it will be using the same code, but once the process is complete with the new data, it would generate a new model artifacts. So as a result of this, we will track the models separately from the machine learning project code, and this we achieve it with the help of the model registry services. And data, obviously, while working, will always tend to keep separate environments for storage. So dev is a development environment for storage where these storage will be temporary and it keeps on changing depending on the product and the prototype that we are building. And if you consider the staging environment, so we will ensure that the data quality that we have, it is almost same as production environment, and we will ensure that we will have a frequent refresh from the production environment to the staging environment. It could be monthly, quarterly, depending on the type of project and the compliance requirement that you have got. Then obviously we have a production environment where the data is reliable and data is always fresh. So these are the common assets that we generally come across while working in any machine learning project. Now, if you take a look into the complete CI/CD pipeline, which is known as continuous integration and the continuous deployment pipeline, this is how the CI/CD pipeline execution in the AWS cloud services would look like. So in our learning journey, we will be majorly focusing on MLOps with AWS. So if you take a look at it at a very high level, so what I want to highlight some of the key thing is, see, we have got the code commit. So using this code commit, I'm going to monitor the project code. Then once I do any commit for my AWS code commit, I'm going to perform the integration testing, some of the other discrete testing that I want to perform with the help of the code build. Now, in order to generate the model and in order to trigger the training, I'll make use of Amazon SageMaker, where once the model is going to train from the data that it has got from the storage services, it is going to make use of SageMaker model registry, which is a model registry services, in order to track the machine learning models. Now, once the model is pushed to the model registry and the code is updated in the development branch, we are going to pull the same maybe into the production environment. Now here we will get the latest code from the code commit, which is the version code services that we have got in AWS. We'll again perform the code build, which is like the validation of the source code that we have got. And then we will deploy to the required environment. And while deployment, we can make use of any of the services that we have got in AWS to ensure that we have the automatic infrastructure orchestration and the creation. And using the model registry, we'll also expose it to the overall endpoint so that this model can be called upon by other services. Okay, so the same process that we follow for production as well. In this example, we are deploying into the staging, and then if everything is working as per the expectation, so the business user or the stakeholder will approve it, then it will be moved to the production environment. So this is the overall CI/CD pipeline in AWS MLOps, that is for the machine learning operations, would look like. Now, in our learning journey, we will be covering in depth about all the services that you see on the screen. So we will learn about the code commit, code build. You'll also learn about the basics of AWS so that you can implement this CI/CD pipeline on your machine learning projects. We'll also learn about the SageMaker to orchestrate the entire CI/CD pipeline. So this was about the fundamentals of machine learning operations, the tools, the environments, and the assets that you would come across in any machine learning project. So with this, we come to the end of this video. Now, as we progress in the next video, we'll deep dive into the machine learning operations. So I'll see you next time.